100%.
When so you mentioned that your childhood in Costa Rica was hard, but that it was rich in other ways. What did you
Mhm.
mean by that?
Yeah, so like you said, I was born in Costa Rica, in a very small town. Those towns where everybody knows everybody. And I mean, it has its magic. I loved it, but we were very poor. My dad left when we were young, so I grew up with my mom, and it was three of us with my two sisters, and we didn't. She didn't have a job. Basically she started from the bottom up while having us.
Mm.
So I have these beautiful memories of, I guess I love to hang out to those where my mom would try to make a party or a feast out of any little thing. It's sort of like that movie, La Vida es Bella, or it's in an Italian movie. And she, let me give you an example. I always love to say this example because until you're out of it, you see how valuable that was. And we always have like rice and beans because in Costa Rica we grow legumes. It's common. So we always had rice and beans. That was like our baseline. But when she had something else to bring, like eggs or like a little bit of mortadella or something small, she will call it surprise. So tonight we have surprise to eat, and we will like party and like scream and like, wow, there's surprise. So like these little things um were great because I never felt like I lack anything. It was more like, oh wow, I can even go get, there's more out there. There's potential. It gave me that feeling. And with everything, like, I didn't have the things that maybe other kids had, like trips to Disneyland or things like that. I didn't, but I had a very deep sense of family togetherness, and that was that's a good value I carry, today. Thank goodness. But it was still hard. It was. Um my mom was, she was out a lot because she had to work, she had to study. So I was alone most of the time, or we were. My grandma will help. Um, so that also created a little bit of an impact. And then I can talk about that a little later, but all these experiences are going to leave an imprint in us, right? Anything from childhood, anything that happens to us, right? Like the fact that my dad left, that's such an abandonment wound that I carried for years, and that it was impacting my relationships. And all these little nuances that, until just a few years back, now as an adult, I was able to heal. Um, but yeah, so I would say I don't. When I talk about my childhood, I don't see it as a troublesome, awful childhood. No, but there was still some stuff that happened that impacted me in a way. Some of them were very positive, like the one I just told you. Some of them were very negative. Um, but it was great, I think. Was
How, when growing up with fewer resources,
Mhm.
how did you come to develop an abundance mindset?
I think that the fact that like I said before, I didn't feel a lack, right? Like I never felt like I didn't compare myself to the other kids or whoever, other people who had resources, and said, oh my God, I want that. It was coming more from a place of hope, like, yeah, hope of, I want to go there. I want to achieve greater heights. I want to be able to conquer more. I know there is potential. I know there's possibility. And this, um, this attitude that my mom always had contributed to that, because she was never complaining about the fact that we didn't have what to eat. No, she actually put it in the positive side of things and say, hey, look, if you put a little bit of effort into it, you can get even more. So I think that also fed onto this idea of, oh, there is abundance out there that I can actually reach. Why? Because I'm God's daughter, and everything in his kingdom is mine too. You know, and that is the way I have been carrying out my whole life. Like, I always feel like, oh, there is always more. There is a whole field of possibility that maybe I don't see it, but is reachable to me.
So many people that don't think they have enough, and they can on paper look like they have
Mhm.
enough money, but they still worry about keeping up with the Joneses. 1, 2, 10 million, doesn't matter. 100,000. Or you see people that aren't as financially secure that will spend way more than their means on Christmas or on clothes so that they can present in a certain way. And I get wanting to dress for success, as you will, but I don't think that's where it's coming from. What's the difference between, and it seems like a disease. There's a guitar teacher that I follow on YouTube, and one of his biggest sayings is don't compare,
Yeah.
because it's everywhere. And
Mhm.
social media has heightened how much people actually do it. What do
Mhm.
you think is the difference between your mental structure and that mental structure? And what would you say to somebody to help shift them out of that?
Yeah, and I will even argue is more than a mental structure. It's even deeper than that. And it's where is it coming from, right? I think we all go through a process of socialization, right? We get conditioned, and we learn certain things from the environment, from the people that are, our caregivers, anything that's around us, right? And we sort of adopt these ideas based on what they're telling us, and we make it truth that we think is a complete truth, but it's not. So I think that there is the influence you receive in that social conditioning. It creates such an impact on the way then you're going to perceive the world as an adult, right? So in my case, the values that my mom imprinted in me, such as, you know, um, uh, being grateful, just having gratitude for having one more thing on your plate, and that it's heavy, right? It weighs more. And when you grow up, if you're coming from that place of gratitude instead of, oh, like you said, oh, why don't I have that big boat? Oh, and then this overconsumption mentality,
Yeah.
right? Now, and I really want to go a little bit deep into this. Maybe it's too early for this, but I want to go deep into this because this imprint, this conditioning, right? Or I would even go as far as saying this trauma, because some trauma to me is just it's like an unresolved um, situation, or an unresolved stress that's stored in your body. And we all have trauma. You have trauma, I have trauma, everybody has trauma. In the spectrum, it's a little bit different, right? Like, you can have little trauma, like somebody neglected me, or somebody said you're not good enough when I was a kid, or somebody called me stupid, and all these things, and I believed it. And then it can be big T trauma, war, rape, like all the sex trafficking, all this bad stuff. But in the spectrum, right, we all go through that a little bit. And all these unresolved situations, or all this unresolved stress, starts to create like this split, this fragmentation inside of us, that then is like a lens that you use in your adult life to see the world, if you don't heal that, right? So when you when you're able, and I will always go back to, it's about self-love, because to me, self-love is like inner cohesion, is like feeling whole, is like bringing all those fragments together in alignment. Okay. So when you're able to do that and heal all that, your perception to the world will change. You will no longer feel like you have to compare to anybody. So even if at some point a part of you that created this split, and if you're not following it, please ask questions. So a part of you that creates this fragmentation or this split, and in that moment, because this is stress, you're going to generate adaptation, some sort of survival mechanism. Okay, and I'll give you an example so that you know where I'm going with this. So let's say in my case, when my dad left, that was such a strong stressor, such a heavy wound, imprint, that that when he goes away, I say to myself, well, maybe I'm not lovable, because who gets abandoned? People who are not lovable. So then I sort of believe, since I'm a kid, that I am no longer lovable, right? So I create an adaptation. I say I need to cope with this in a way. So I put a strategy, a survival mechanism in place. And then I grow up using it all the time. And this is going to affect the way I see life, the way I handle my relationships, the way I project myself onto the world. All these things. It's like a lens, right? It's like a blur lens, which is cracked, is not my true authentic expression, but it's still there if I don't work with it.
It's a worldview that gets expressed through a past trauma.
Correct. Yes. And then um even though when you go and like you explore it, you realize it's conditioning, it's an idea that somebody has put on me. It's maybe um a limiting belief. It's so many things. It could be anything, all of those things. But if you don't work with it, you'll go through your life repeating the same things, the same pattern, because that is your lens. Yeah. So in this scenario that we were talking about, I feel like there's so many people that have not either gotten the chance or haven't gotten the courage even to like face that, to face, what is underneath all this, me trying to prove my worth by having more, or me, trying to prove the world that I'm lovable or that I'm worthy, or like so many things that are driving. It's like an under current that are driving their behavior, and is not conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you really work on those patterns and you bring consciousness and self-awareness, and you say, and you try and you see it, and then you integrate it, is going to continue to drive your behavior. So that's why I say it's more than mental, because your cortical brain can do the math and be like, okay, if I do that, but it is way deeper than that. It's more in your primal limbic brain. It's stored way deeper in the unconscious, that you don't notice it, but it's like you have a foot on the brake and a foot on the gas, right? But you don't want to have your foot on the brake because you want to achieve many things, but you continue to put your foot on the brake without knowing why.
I'm dating myself here, but once upon a time, when with the older computers, because of moving the files around, you had to defrag the hard drive so it could reorganize the files so your computer would work. And we think about, we build our careers, we try to build relationships, we maybe focus on feeding ourselves right, exercising. We look at those various aspects of our lives. But you're right, the mental, psychological pieces of ourselves, education won't fix all of that. We also have to, as you said, go deeper and figure out, okay, why do I do the things that I do? Do I want to keep doing those things with intention, or am I going to be reactionary? And so being more attuned to why you do the things that you do is critically important. Um, but
Yes.
there's people, there's like a learned helplessness with it's like people will have a particular trauma or a stack of traumas, and then they stop, and they'll stay a particular emotional age no matter how old they get. I was listening to you, and you said you always felt aspirational.
Mm-hmm.
How does somebody break through whatever their young self went through to become aspirational now?
Yeah. And I want to share a little bit of, to get to your answer, how I got to do this work. Because, usually when I share what I used to do and how I ended up doing more like trauma integration around sex and love and relationships, it's like, how did that happen? And I started doing holistic health coaching. So most of the time, people will come to me with a desire, which was very physical oriented, right? Like, I want to lose weight. I want to look better. I want to, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and I would work with them, and you start to see how at some point it's like they get in like on their own way, right? Like
Mm,
something happens, is like what you were talking about, that the limit, or that roof in the emotional aspect. But let me even go back to the physical aspect, because I think we are so interconnected, right? It's everything. Is your physical body connected to your emotions, to your mind? And if everything is aligned, then it's very easy to be successful on whatever it is that you want to achieve, right? That desired reality. So when I started that, I started to realize, well, for one part, how many women actually go through awful situations related to sex, and all this trauma that they carry, that they don't share with anybody until they have a safe space to open up. That for one part. But on the other part, I started to think, like, is it lack of discipline? Like, why is it that at some point people are just, they get to a point and then they give up to their resistance? Why? Right? And then I realized, well, there is, there's always gonna there's always going to be a little bit of resistance every time you're trying to achieve something, that where you have to go through a discomfort, or it's a painful situation. So just exercising, yeah, it's hard, it's painful, you have to get up, like all these things, right? And or even dieting, right? Like, oh, I have to restrict myself, all these things. There's going to be resistance, but the resistance has like layers. And it's not just, I don't have enough motivation. No, it's that when you start to work your patterns, all this stuff, the trauma, the limiting beliefs, the things that I think about myself start to come up, right? Then you realize, oh, it's not only about not eating the food or going to the gym. It's like, how do you work with the unresolved stuff that is unconscious and that is going to show up in these situations? That's one side. Like, if you give in to the resistance and you give up, it's because there is some pattern, something that you're believing about yourself that's stopping you. It's as if you have conflicting parts. I always like, going back to this sense of self-love or like inner cohesion. All these splits, all these fragmentations that had happened through our lives, there is a part of you that is saying, I hate this, I don't want this. And there is another one that's saying, I want to be successful at this. Yeah, let's do it. And if they are conflicting, you're stuck. You're stuck and you have your foot on the brake. So that when you give in to that resistance, it's very hard to accomplish anything. Because then, the next day you're going to be like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I want to stay in bed. I don't want to go. And you stop and you don't achieve anything. Right. On the other side, which is where growing up, I spend a lot of my time, and it's not healthy either, which is basically you're forcing yourself to success, right? And this is a little bit older in my life, but I did that for years, for many years. I was in corporate, I was climbing the ladder, I was all doing all these things, pushing, striving, bulldozing my way through. And that is not healthy either, because that means I'm ignoring the resistance. And I'm like, I'm unresponsive to myself. My whole body is screaming, hello, you're sick. You have burnout. My hair was falling, my face was, everything was telling me, there is something here you need to work on, girl. You're doing this because you're trying to prove your worth to the world by getting external validation, getting awards, getting money, whatever it was. But I was still trying to put a band-aid on my wound. So that is the other side, where I was, instead of giving up and giving into the resistance, which is what a lot of people do, I was pushing my way through. But that, what happens when you're in that, and you know this, right? Like, we get sick, or if we're pushing too hard physically, we get injured. And then there's this negative spiral in our heads, like, that doesn't help us move forward either. And to me, it's more like in the middle. When you have to meet yourself in the middle, or be able to bring yourself to that space in the middle where the discipline that you want is working with yourself. And when the resistance comes up, physically, emotionally, like, oh, it's going to come up. When it comes up, you ask, what is this trying to tell me? What's behind my resistance? Why don't I want to do this? Or why am I always doing the same thing to myself? Why do I keep dating the same asshole? Why do I, like, all the things? And when you start to self-inquire, right, and you start to ask the question, then you're in the right path, because then you take the information that your system is sending you to make the right choice. And that is the difference. Like, I understand that it's a spectrum, and it takes work, inner work, to be able to ground yourself in the middle and being able to ask all these questions. But when you're there and you bring this self-awareness, and with this objective and conscious free will, you say, okay, given the information that I have, that my body's telling me, or my emotions are telling me, or my ego, or whatever it is telling me, I take it all in, and then I say, okay, what's the right action to take? And when you're in that path, that's what I call discipline. You're not giving into your resistance. You're not ignoring your resistance. You're being responsive to the information your whole system is trying to tell you to move forward. And this works with emotions too. To me, the emotions, at the end of the day, it's information. It's a notification. It's something telling you, hey, you need to pay attention. That's it. We have learned to label emotions like good or bad, and I don't agree with that. To me, emotions are just energy in motion. It's life force flowing through you, right? And your body is either using information from the outside or from the inside, right? From your thoughts, from all your belief system. It's using all that to give you a trigger and we somehow got to learn to say, okay, this is trying to tell me something, right? But the mastery is not regulating your emotions. I don't even believe in that. I mean, you need to let your emotions run through you. You need to feel the things. You're a human being.
I'm a huge fan of actually I just posted on X last week that anxiety can tell you what to focus on.
Yes, exactly. It's information, it's data. So, and to me, instead of saying, oh, how do I learn to, because this is, I mean, I make the face because this is so now like common. How do I learn to regulate my emotions? No. That's not the point. The point is behavioral mastery. How do you, in that moment, with that data you have, you let it flow through you, because if you let your emotions get stuck, they are going to somatize somehow. So it's like a tunnel. Let it go through. But in that moment, in that pause, You sit with yourself and the resistance that you're feeling or the emotion that you're feeling, you explore it, you ask questions, you try to understand what it's trying to tell you, and then you master the behavior that comes right after. So I always say there is so much power in that pause. Instead of just reacting, you're like, wait, oh, pause, just one moment, and be like, why am I feeling this? What is this trying to tell me? And then you master your behavior, you take an action that's not directly related or is not dictated by the emotion. That is the point to me.
Yes. Going back to that self-control aspect.
Mhm.
So that actually leads me to another question. So you've called yourself the warrior.
Yeah.
And it's if I have it defined correctly, it's this very independent woman who doesn't need anyone.
Yes.
When did that identity form and how did it serve you?
Yes. Oh, yummy, yummy question. All right. So, well, remember I told you about my dad leaving. So, especially for a little girl, when we don't have a figure like a male figure, he just left, and I I remember how hurt I felt in that moment, right? Like, why is he leaving me all of a sudden? He just disappears, making me believe that I was this unlovable creature, which is just sad to think about it. Like, if I think about my little girl, I'll be like, oh my God, I wish somebody would have been there to tell her, hey, no, there's nothing wrong with you. That has nothing to do with you. But at that moment, you don't have the resources, the mental capacity to process it. So my adaptation or my survival mechanism, if you want to call it that, was to put this armor on and tell myself I will never be hurt like this before, ever, especially by a man, right? So I grew thinking, this idea of I will never need a man, you know and I feel like this is like a pendulum, and I went the other way, which is
Mm.
not healthy either. And I went, I will never need another man in my life. And it has, I mean, that's it's like a persona or like a sub personality at the end of the day, right? Like the inner child that we carry through adulthood is just a collection of memories, imprints, wounds, things that have happened in the past, right? So this persona I build up, right? It's like a mask that helps me now survive my new reality. And I wore it proudly for years, and it helped me in certain situations. Corporate America.
Mhm.
Yes, and in many things, because I became a single mom with my boys, and when my little one was like 1 year old, and so through all those moments, I remember just visualizing the warrior, and she helps me through it. I know for a fact, because if I was not that strong, I couldn't show up for my babies in a way that I needed to at that moment. The problem is when you over identify with this persona that you built, and we all put our own mask, our own created mask that we needed at that moment. And then it became it became unhealthy, because now I have this wall, right, in between me and other relationships that I at some point I craved. I wanted intimacy, I wanted a real partner, and all these things that I couldn't have because I was still wearing the armor or the wall in between. And it's exhausting, especially I'll talk about my example. I completely remove myself from my feminine expression. And I always say, all women are a divine expression of the feminine, and all men are a divine expression of the masculine. And I completely remove myself from that role, because it implied that I had to be vulnerable and feminine. And in that moment, I had associated those terms with weakness, and it made me puke. Like, it was that bad. Like, I had embodied this warrior personality that just goes to war and fights everything and da da da.
Mm.
And that would not allow any man to come into my space because first there is no role to play. He's got it. So I would not even attract a person into my space. And second, it kept me isolated and, not being able to receive ever, not being able to be supported, to be like all the things that I really wanted. I was the one putting the wall in between without really knowing it. So until I did all my healing process, I realized, oh, wow, if I really want to move forward and have a great relationship, she needs to be put somewhere else because I don't believe in repressing, disowning, or anything like that. But she needs to have another role. So
Mm.
I gave her another role, and she comes out sometimes. When I'm CrossFit, she comes out. But it's like she's no longer in the driver's seat.
You mentioned using that part of your personality, the warrior, to climb the ladder at Coca Cola. What did success look like back then?
Oh, very different. I think because I was still trying to prove, this quote unquote, I'm worthy, I'm lovable. My focus or the way I was approaching life is like, I need to prove it by having all these achievements, all these, shiny objects, and that included my career, included my, money, included an MBA, like all this. I was coming from a place of very unconscious unworthiness, and I was trying to fulfill that with worldly trophies. Let's call it that, right? And it's interesting because when you are in that path, and then you get there, and you're like, "Is this it?" Like, it doesn't feel good at all, and I mean, the way I see it now is like I had a nail on my foot forever. Like all this time I'm climbing the ladder and I had that nail on my foot, but I keep going, I keep going, I keep going because I think that's what at the end of this is where I'm gonna find happiness and success. And then I keep going and it's hurting, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep going. And then there is a point in life, in my case, usually because I'm hurting somebody else, which in this case was my kids. That was my cosmic slap, like I call it. And I realized in that moment, oh, if I don't remove the nail from my feet, I'm never gonna feel good. And that nail for me was this external validation that I was
Mm.
always trying to achieve, like trying to find my worth in something external. It was like outsourcing my own value.
So even though you weren't comparing yourself to others, you were still acquiring to prove yourself to you.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Everybody is going to generate an adaptation to these traumas, to these situations, right? In a different way. Not necessarily that I'm comparing myself to others, but there's still something that needs to be healed inside of me if I want all my parts working together. I always say, look, success cannot happen. Or let me say it different. I always tell people, do not take action unless all your parts are in alignment. What does that mean? It's like if I didn't align my warrior, if I didn't align the piece of me that felt unworthy, if I didn't align all these pieces that are conflicting to what I really want, I am not going to get there, or it's going to take me forever because it's coming from a place of lack. It's coming from a place of I'm missing something. And when you bring alignment into all those pieces by integrating them, by doing the work, by, exploring your belief system, um, healing all these wounds, then it's easier. It's like, oh, now my whole self, my whole, literally, central nervous system is aligned to go get what I truly want.
So are you saying take no action or be aware that the actions you take are going to be impaired and so you have to do the work?
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And as you bring all those conflicting parts together, working with you.
You mentioned the cosmic slaps, and that's actually something I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
What were some of the signs that things weren't right, even though your life on the outside looks great? You have the
My
MBA, you have the great job, all that.
my nail on the foot. Um, yes. Well, for once, we're all mind body is all interconnected. So my body was speaking to me. Our bodies are very wise. They know. Even I think even before our cortical brain says, "Oh, our bodies are feeling it already." If you're really connected to your intuition, your body will be like, "This doesn't feel good," or "This feels good." And my body was giving me feedback. I was getting sick, throughout that process of trying to achieve the impossible standard, right? And I started to get panic attacks, like physically, I was I was losing my hair, my skin was really bad, like I was having a lot of headaches. I was under stress, a lot of stress. I was living on flight mode.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this long term, this is detrimental to our physical body. So for one side, one part, my body was always talking to me. But then, um, even though I was neglecting something so important, oh my God, which is my kids, because there was a moment in my life where we moved to the U.S. and I was going through that process of climbing the ladder and all that. We came here and they were still little, but I was so focused on that goal that I was outsourcing my role as a mother. I was so worried about getting more, my promotions, keep going up, keep getting another degree and all that, that I would just give the responsibility to somebody else. And what that looked like, I will go to no actually I will go drop them off at a daycare very early in the morning so that I could go all the way downtown, right? You know how crazy it is here, so I had to go very early so I could go to the office, be in meetings all day, yada yada, while this daycare will take care of them, drive them to school, pick them up, and then I will go very late after I was done with all my things to pick them up. And literally was just pick them up, go home, have dinner, go to bed. That's it. I was not even having a connection with them. I was not even talking to them because I had no time. And they would call me all the time and be like, hey, they're having behavioral issues. Like there's something happening that maybe you should pay attention. And I was like so in a rush. No, just handle it. It's okay. Just handle it. I can't. I don't have time. Sorry, I'm in a meeting. Sorry. So bad that there was a point in time. I don't know if I told this, maybe. I don't remember, but a point in time where did I tell you the story about when my little one
We're talking about the principal's office.
yes.
This is you have to tell the story. This is
Okay.
and what I'd like as you tell this story is when you walked in and you saw what you saw, what did you feel in that moment?
All right, so to tell this story, these calls and emails from the teachers were constant. I was getting them all the time. Well, of course, like my little babies were trying to, to say hello. What's happening? I mean, I moved them from a place that was familiar to a new country, new people, new language. They didn't even speak English. New food, like everything was, you know, and I mean, on top of that, I had left the relationship with their dad in, like I removed them from that for a good cause, but even like the whole thing was unfamiliar, was new to them. So they didn't have any containment. They didn't have any transition, nothing. I would just put them there and go with God. And when, creating trauma, creating a wound in my kids without even knowing, because now I'm putting them into this situation that they cannot cope with. It's too much. So, during all that process, one day I get a call from the school principal, and they said, I cannot tell you over the phone this time, you need to come. And I was like, well, handle it. And she was like, no, you are going to have to come right now. And I cannot explain. So, it was like cold water, when she told me that. And all the scenarios were running in my head of what could have happened that she couldn't tell me. So the drive home was the worst because I kept bringing all this crazy scenarios in my head. Anyway, when I got there, she walked me to the office, and she didn't say anything. She just opened the door and she said, look. And Robert, the whole place was absolutely destroyed. Destroyed. Like something came in there, like some tornado. Like the desk was on the floor. There were papers ripped everywhere. All the books, the bookshelf was on the floor. It was really destroyed, like really bad. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're trying to tell me. And then it clicked, and she just pointed, and my little boy was laying on the floor, completely asleep, because he just had an emotional tantrum. And he was exhausted. And this is the moment when, even though this happened internal, but I felt like something hit me on the head, and my skull cracked open, and the light got in, finally. And I felt, well, of course, I felt guilt. Oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this to my kids? But at the same time, it was like I heard a voice that said, finally, you're paying attention. And in that moment, I grabbed my boy and I just said, I am so sorry that you had to do this to call mama's attention. I am here and I'm not going to do this to you again. And I took him home. I didn't even say anything. I don't even remember what happened with the people. I don't even remember what I said to them. In that moment, it was just me and my boy. And finally understanding, he needs you. He needs, the mother, you're the caregiver, like you're doing to him what it was done to you in a different way. So this is coming back to what I was saying. You repeat your patterns unless light gets in, unless you bring it to the light of awareness. And I had to go through that. And I mean, not everybody has to go through such a painful thing, but sometimes these cosmic slaps help so much. You need them, because it was only at that moment that I said, I'm not only abandoning my kids like my dad did, I'm abandoning myself. Look at me. I was a disaster, like physically, emotionally, it was a wreck. And so that's when I started. That was the moment when I said something needs to change.
So how do you respond yourself and to other people when you did a good thing, right? You moved to improve you and your family's life. Bad things came from the good thing.
Mhm.
So how do you respond to that, to yourself and to others?
So remember how I was saying that sometimes we are like bulldozing our way through just because we think that's what's going to make us happy or give us success, but you become unresponsive to yourself and others. And that was my situation. And what does that mean? It means that I'm ignoring my resistance. I'm ignoring whatever is trying to tell me that is not the way. That's not the path. And I knew that. Like if I truly, look at the nail on my foot, if I truly realize I'm hurting myself, I'm hurting others by what I'm doing, you would realize that You're out of alignment with your truth. And to me, that's key in all this. Like, if there's anything I want you to take from this, is every time you're going out of alignment with with your truth, what really feels good to you, with your authenticity, what you truly are, your full expression, what you came here to do. If you're going different directions, like there is something always telling you that is not the way. And I ignore that 100%. I know, because I
Why
had
did you ignore it?
because I was still attached to the idea that success meant having it all.
Or, but you didn't really have it all
No,
because you were losing out on so much. It was a
exactly.
version of success.
Exactly. Because in that moment, my focus was outward. Like, how do I get something from the outside to make me feel good? Not realizing, oh, wait a minute. No, it's actually the other way around. When I feel good with myself, when I feel good with what I'm doing, with what I'm providing to the world, when all my values are aligned, my thoughts, my actions, like when everything is in alignment, then it feels good. I feel in alignment with my truth. And that meant it had to come from the inside.
What's the difference between the person that they lack ambition, they play video games all day, they drink, they do drugs, whatever that thing is, but they're numbing whatever that is inside of them, versus the person that is a go-getter and trying to seek their version of success while also covering up pain?
Mhm.
What's the difference between those two people? Is one better than the other?
No, not at all. I mean, to me, it's all unconscious barriers. Like in this case, the example I played, this person that's not achieving anything is either giving into the resistance, right? Like, I'm not gonna do anything with it, or is afraid to face their demons, their shadows, whatever is it that they have repressed within themselves. And that is very common. Not everybody wants to go to the underworld and, go back to the wound from your childhood. I understand it's painful, it's scary, but not everybody's ready, and not everybody wants to do it. And as long as there is a part of you that is repressed, suppressed, or disowned, it's going to be very hard for you to move forward. So easier to numb it, easier to do video games, porn, whatever it is, for you to not think about. It's like if you don't want to face yourself. And it takes a lot of courage to face yourself and go back and say, what's the part of me that I'm not integrating, that I'm disowning because I don't want to see it in my situation. So that we follow the same line is my vulnerability, my that tender heart that got broken, that I associated with weakness. I didn't want that. I repressed that down and created the warrior. But if I didn't work on that, and I brought it to light, accepted it as a part of me, because it's not about repressing, it's not about shoving it down. It's the opposite. Is you have to bring it up, because what you resist persists. What you accept transforms. So I had to accept that obscure, shadowy part of me and make it, feel welcome. So that, and then when you do that, stop screaming, stop reacting, and then, it's integrate it. And it's easier for you to then take the next step instead of,
You overcome with the warrior part of you. So imagine that there's still those moments where you feel resistance.
yeah.
Is that the warrior part of you, or have you shifted how you approach those fears or
Uh,
that resistance?
I mean, we're a work in progress, right? So I cannot say I'm fully healed. No, yes, it will come up in certain situations. The difference is like now I can consciously decide
Hmm.
what part of me is going to take the lead in this situation, right? Like in that, let's say if it's, I don't know, in my relationship, she could easily get triggered because it touches an old wound that maybe is still there healing. But in that pause, like I mentioned, I can say, okay, what part of me is able to handle the situation? The little girl, maybe not. Maybe she can just go play. Maybe in this scenario, I can bring my goddess, because it's also a personality that I created, which is basically my alignment to my true self. So maybe I can give it to her and she can handle this gracefully. So there is, I always say, it's like giving yourself back the power of choice. That's it. You, in that moment, you can choose. Okay, what do I want to do with this? That's the behavioral mastery. Do I want to react and just push through, or do I want to take a moment, be objective, and use my free will to say, maybe I want to do this, maybe I don't want to do that. So
I actually have a good example of this from very recent experience. I find that men are often allowed to either be fine or feel angry. They don't typically get allowed by society to experience the full range of emotion.
yeah.
And as you become more conscious, you live that fuller, richer life. Nevertheless, I had a vendor who delivered horrible work, did failed to meet expectations, and even missed the biggest part of the project.
Oh.
I was immediately irritated, put us off time. No, excuse me, I was angry.
Just say it.
So, and I start banging out what I want to say in message format, but I was able to take a pause, realize that I was angry. Actually, went into Chat GPT and I said, "Here's what I want to say. Now make it persuasive and professional.
Yeah.
And here's my list."
That's
And
a
it
good use of
did.
ChatGPT.
And then the person responds back with all of this short burst of angry messages. And I did the same. This is what the person said. Let's continue the conversation. And so even though I could feel that I was riled up, I was still able to be present enough to seek outside help from an AI and ultimately get what I wanted from this person.
Yeah, and that's awesome. That's great. The power of the pause. And even if you have to go to ChatGPT, it's great because that means you're you're bringing conscious awareness into the situation. You're not just reacting emotionally. No, you're okay. I'm feeling all these emotions, right? I'm feeling angry, and feeling anger. It's fine. It's we're human. It's a it's an expression of somebody crossed a boundary, and that's fine. I call it righteous anger. You're not gonna punch them in the face because that would be reacting, or that would be an
Mm-hmm.
action that's dictated by the emotion, and that's what we don't want. We want to be able to stop and say, okay, what's the best path going forward? What's the best behavior in this situation? The best response that is conducive of my well-being, but also the other person's well-being, right? So, and when that whole situation serves you both, then it was healthy anger because then now you can move forward. So I think and I agree with you that men are, they're not allowed to feel the emotions. Like this is such a social conditioning too, and an unhealthy one. So I love the fact that you say, well, you're expanding your awareness and now you're allowing yourself to feel the full spectrum because it is healthy. We need to feel the spectrum. We are human beings, and that's the whole point, right? Of being the experience, feeling it all.
Yeah, we all want a better life.
Yeah.
You, when you left Coca Cola, you were both. You said in this interview that I watched that you were excited and terrified at the same time.
Mhm.
What what was that emotional process like? What was that journey to leave Coca Cola like?
Oh, oh, it's terrifying, 100%. Because, like I said before, I was overly identified with this personality that was the go-getter, the warrior, and I associated my career, right? Like, because I was being productive, I was creating an outcome, right? I was giving, like, I was showing my value somehow, right? When to let go of that meant letting go of my identity. Literally, it's like now, if I let go of that, which was this corporate employee, this boss bitch, so you can scratch that. But literally, that was the energy I was embodying. And letting go of that was scary because now who am I? Right? When I'm not that. And that was a process. However, yes, I was feeling terrified, and I actually have a picture of the moment when it was during COVID, and I had to send the laptop in a like a FedEx envelope or something like box, and my face is funny to see because my face is a combo of like. You don't even know, it's like I'm happy because finally I get to let go, but at the same time, my face is like, I'm gonna die. And when you let go of these personas that are not you, right? These masks that you put on to survive, there is a sense of death. Like you're going to rip something open, like this skin, and shed it and let it go. So there is your whole system is reacting to that, and there is a sense of something has to die so that I can become this other thing. The good thing is that I had started all my inner work, right? So I kept on going to this higher self, the goddess, right? This inner higher self with capital S. That's my connection to source, my connection to God, however you want to call it. That was grounded, and that was like it was more like a compassionate witness to me. And by going there, and I could hear my intuition, I could hear my voice saying, it is the right thing to do. It is. Maybe there's a lot of uncertainty, yes, in that moment, because you don't know how it's going to go. You will never know. But it's sort of like a death of your ego, honestly. Like if I had to go there, it's like you kill this voice in your head that's telling you, oh, but you don't know what's going to happen, and it's full of self-doubt, and you're like, just stop, I don't want to hear it hear you in this moment. And then you focus on that grounded piece of you that knows you're going in the right direction, that is like divinely being guided. And that was my intuition. That's when I truly say I took the nail out of my foot. And yeah, it was sore, it hurt, but I knew I was in the journey of healing and walking properly on my feet. And thank God I did, because our whole family changed, our whole dynamic changed. My kids, which was, my best measure of success, if I had to compare, they are thriving. My little one is thriving. So yes, I was scared, but sometimes that's letting go and just trusting is necessary.
It's 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 interesting. It's like people that get abused, they get more afraid of not being in the familiar situation of the abuse, and so they don't leave. But that also translates to we get addicted to whatever bubble we're in,
Yes.
and without we fear the new more
Yes.
than we feel the present. That's can be way worse.
And I want to say something about that because I see this in my clients a lot, which means just because something it's new, whatever, it doesn't mean it's unsafe. And this is so deeply ingrained in all of us that literally just because your nervous system feels that it's not safe to go into that direction. And I'll give you an example in my life to land this concept. When I met my husband, I did not recognize him. I didn't recognize, the love, true safety that he was projecting to me, because I was so accustomed, so used to this erratic energy around relationships. Bad, like the on and off, like the guy that comes and goes, that erratic dynamic to me is what I knew love was. And this even goes back, is rooted in what happened to me as a kid, because the fact that my dad left and there was no emotional attunement and all that, the love that I received as love as a kid translated into my concept of love as an adult.
Mhm.
So for me, this narcissist, because I attracted really bad partnership before. So like narcissistic abusive relationships were really bad. But I thought that was love because it felt familiar to my nervous system. This erratic situation, this horrible situation where they love me and then they don't, and they go and they come back. That was love to me. That was familiar, even though it wasn't safe. But I associated that with safety, well, because that was what I knew. The moment I go into a healthy relationship, right? And I'm like, oh no, that's why I say I didn't recognize it, because to me it was something completely new and it made me feel unsafe. But think about this, it's such a um so misguided, because I was truly moving to real safety, real connection, real intimacy. But I needed to learn little by little to get out of my edge, to get out of that zone that I thought it was the safety zone, to really experience the new and realize, oh, that is true safety. And that's how I finally was able to have a real great relationship in my life. But uh, um, um, there has to be something from my part as well. A lot of people point fingers at the partner, right? They're triggering, they're saying they're doing this, they're doing that. But I always say, look, in all this process, your best companion, yeah, bring compassion. Please, always bring compassion and say, I know why I'm going through all this. Of course, with everything that happened to me, and the fact that I'm functional, that's amazing. Yeah, bring compassion. However, bring accountability too.
Mm.
There is, a role you play in all this, even if it's just participating in the relationship that's hurting you. There is a role. And if you don't bring, if empathy doesn't come with accountability, it's just a misguided attempt to relieve suffering. And we're not gonna go there.
People use accountability like it's a bad word. And I think it might be the most foundational to what we've been talking about today. If you look through it as a lens of self care, of being accountable to yourself, that it's about being healthy. And that enables you to start uncovering these things, to start having healthier relationships, healthier relationship with work, healthier mental models, all of that. Um,
Yes.
why do you think accountability, right? Because people go, you need to be more accountable, and it's said in this very angry way,
Mhm.
or like you're trying to put somebody in their place. Why do you think it's being used that way instead of as a positive?
Oh, yeah, I think there is such a negative connotation. The same way, like being emotional now has a negative connotation.
Mm, hmm.
Shouldn't be. It's just a social conditioning, right? All these things that we have learned from our culture. But and now it's accountability has been associated with a negative concept. But like you said, if let's separate it to, like, at the end of the day, is accountability just means taking self-responsibility. It just means, what am I contributing here in this situation, in this relationship, or whatever? Like, what's my role in all this? And saying, you know what? Me too. I have a part in this. And when you start to look at that way, and in a way, I think it needs some reframing on the fact that no, accountability is actually a great thing. If you don't bring accountability or self-responsibility into your healing process, you're not going to move, because then you're not going to take action. And you can spend your life in therapy and conversations and like analysis paralysis without taking action. And yeah, you bring all the compassion, but that's halfway. And you can spend years in halfway. But the moment you realize, oh, self responsibility and being accountable for my part in this is the only way I'm going to take the next step forward. I'm going to say, okay, now because I understand I had this role in this situation, or I allowed this guy to beat me, or I allowed this to happen. Like, all these things, all like the role that you're playing in it, then you are able to get your power back. Because you think about it, you think, oh, I wasn't just a victim. There is a part that where I have power to do something. I have power to take action. I have power to move forward. And that's when the real change happens.
Agreed. I find that this shift comes along by asking, or we start to ask better questions. So if we're in a bad relationship, we start asking, not how do I find the next person? It becomes, what's the type of relationship that I want to have?
Yeah,
What is that person like? What type of person do I need to be in order to
exactly.
attract that kind of person? And then those questions lead to more accountability as long as you take what you said as action.
Yes, 100%. And it's very important that last question that you asked, like, who do I need to be first, too? Like, how do I become the person that I'm? Because a lot of people are focusing on only how do I curate the perfect partner.
Mm.
But when we do the U-turn, and how are you coming into this? Like, what are you projecting? What are you bringing? Who is the person that's actually that you're bringing into the relationship? That even to me is even way more important because I mean, with that we can go a whole another rabbit hole with that, but I think it's very, very important in relationships also and I get this question a lot, like how do I attract the perfect man? Like how do I it's so common. And I always say, well, maybe you're asking the wrong question. How do you become the person? There will be a line on your door. Oh, guys, like focus on you first. Heal your wounds. Heal the patterns that are making you recreate the wounding, the conditional, the cultural, social, all this programming that you have been carrying. And when you realize all this is not mine and you let it go, and then now your true self-concept, then you're going to find a partner that's actually, at the level that you want. You're no longer trying to attract the idea of the person that somebody told you should have. No, it's actually somebody that's in alignment with the truth as well.
When you, so you get the cosmic slap, you
Yeah.
decide to take action and make a change out of your career to do something about it. What did the healing process look like for you?
Shitty. It was. I mean, literally, I always say it's going to the underworld. And let me tell you a little bit about it. The first thing I did, honestly, was like I guess most of us would do. I went to a doctor and I said, look, all these things are happening to me, and I'm having panic attacks, and I don't know what to do, and I cannot sleep. And I was like, like that, really bad. And they would be like, oh, just like handling Skittles, have the
uh,
pill,
yeah.
this other pill, or this other pill. And I was like, oh, because I don't really, I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals. I don't like to take pills. And and I started to research how can I heal myself? How can I get out of this stress, the chronic stress that I have? And then I started to learn about all these alternatives, holistic ways of doing it. And that's how I actually ended up in the holistic world, because I fell in love with it. And I was blown out of my mind that all these alternatives are out there and we don't know about them. Like, learning how to meditate, learning how to ground ourselves, like even like botanicals, like adaptogens, like all these things that can help you get there. Like it's a transition, right? So that's how it started. However, like I said at the beginning, when you start to dig deep, maybe at that moment it felt just like a very surface level situation. My body is having chronic stress. But then you start to dig and dig, and then you realize, wait, there is something underneath. Why am I doing these things? Why do I push myself to the limit? Why am I forcing myself into all these crazy standards? and and I realized, oh, there's a wound. There's an unhealed wound here that I didn't even know how to heal it. And then this is how I started to go into this path, where I understood this was trauma, and I needed to integrate it so that I could move forward, so that I could um, stop repeating the pattern and all that. So I started my inner work, and um, I'll tell you, there were a few months where I had to let my family know this is not a moment I can be here for you. I am going through all these things because everything comes to the surface in that process. It's like you go to the underworld, you literally see your demons, which just means all the parts of you that you have repressed, disowned, suppressed, they're deep down there, and because you have deemed them as negative or ugly, or you don't want them as a part of you. And they come bubbling to the surface. And I was feeling all the things. I hated my husband in that moment. And I told him, I need you to understand, I'm going through a process of healing where if I don't bring all this out, it's not going to be integrated. And he even says that was like one of the worst times in our relationship after we were okay, because I was really bringing out the word and to his face. And this warrior hated man. Remember, she actually was built out of a wound of a man leaving her. So in that moment, I really hated my husband. And look, if I understand now, God sent me like so many men in my life. I have 3 boys, my husband, because I needed to heal the wound and understand that men play a crucial role in our lives. And up to that point, I didn't really trust it as a whole, the males. I didn't really trust men in general, even though I had already, I got married, and but she there will be situations where you could see her sneaking. Like, for example, my husband will try to carry my groceries, and I'd be like, what do you think, I'm weak? Like, she would still pop up here and there, or he would try to open the door, something so sweet and beautiful. Like, now I appreciate, but in that moment I was like, yeah, I can do it myself. I still had it in me for a long time. Or like when we got married for a long time, our finances had to be separated. Like things like that would not really allow me to have true intimacy and connection with my husband. So this was, I'm telling you, the whole healing process of that piece of me was not long ago when I actually was able to say, whoa, finally, I see her. And I saw this wounded piece, a part of me, and I grabbed it and I gave her what it needed from me, not from external achievement, not from another man, not from another trophy on my wall. No, it was from me realizing I had an unmet need from that little girl. And the only way I was going to heal that, it was by fulfilling that need through me, becoming in a way the caregiver that she needed at that moment, the mother, the parent, whatever it is that you need in that moment, and meeting that need with compassion and love. And when I gave her that, she said, I can't let go.
I can only imagine that it feels so much lighter
Mhm.
to have let all of that stuff go and that you see the world brighter
Yes.
than what it was before, because you're not having to be it's a form of PTSD, needing that warrior to be there. It's like a person that comes home from war and can't stand down. You always have to be vigilant and on guard, and to be able to finally react. One of the things that you said, I want to make sure I get this right, that women carry stories that aren't theirs, and it can be cultural, religious, generational.
Yes.
What are some of the most common stories that you help women rewrite?
Mm. My favorite, the good girl story. This is gonna get
What
interesting.
does that mean?
We have been conditioned. I mean, it's so common. That's why I say it's my favorite, because I see it all the time, to be the good girl. And that means don't be loud. Don't be, don't be too much. Don't outshine anybody. Your role is to make sure everybody else feels good. And we learn this from when we are little girls. And then we somehow we learn to believe that our role is to control other people's emotions, meaning I want to please you for you to feel great. So we become people pleasers. And then when somebody is trying to get out of that good girl role, she gets judged by all the other ones who are still in their role. Why? Because now instead of and the girls that want to get out of that good girl role or pleasing others, or instead of focusing on their own emotions, they're outwardly focused. They're trying to make sure everybody else is fine, but you have to be quiet. And if you're not feeling great while doing that role, well, you shut up, because it's not ladylike to rebel. And then I feel like the women that are starting to realize, wait, this doesn't fit me. I don't want to be this good girl. I don't want to be in this good girl role. When you start to rebel against it or coming out of it, then it's like the whole society, it tries to pull you down, because now what are you doing? Well, now you are a threat to the patriarchal system, right? Because now, oh my gosh, she's gonna be loud, and now she's gonna have a voice, and now she's gonna be powerful, and it's so common. I think that I want to say 90% of the women that I work with have this pleasing mode on. Like, they don't say what they want to say for real, because of the fear of hurting somebody else's feelings. So what do? They self-abandon. They let go of their authenticity, of their true voice, or what I truly feel right now. And I truly want you to know, this is me telling you what I want. This is me telling you what I need. They don't do that. They say it's easier to say, I'll just self-abandon myself, and I say what they want me to hear. And then we become whatever the world wants us to be, instead of being truly us. It takes guts. I always say it takes a lot of balls for girls to say, you know what, now I'm going to be me, and I'm going to say what I want, and I want to speak up, and I want to be loud. And if I want to if I want to wear the things that make me feel great, it's everything is so judged. So that's why as a society, I always encourage and support every woman that goes through that process and says, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. And I'm ready to embrace who I really am, not who you or others want me to be.
So, if not being a people pleaser anymore leads to a society wanting to put you back in place, do you feel that you and the rest of women are, when you reach that place of not being the good girl, that you're constantly being barraged and attacked,
Yeah,
or so so you move from beating up on yourself to society beating up on you, is what I'm hearing you say.
correct. Like you move from pleasing or molding into someone that it's as acceptable because there is a feeling. Let's go again to the underlying current. We have a need for belonging to a group, to a family, to a society, to a culture. So it's very hard to go against that and say, I'm gonna stop molding into whoever society wants me to be myself. It's very hard because now you're ripping yourself from the group, and now you're going against the current and being you for real, the real you. Those who are already in that space, they will embrace you, but they're not as many as the ones that are going with the crowd. So this is a lonely path. It's very hard because then you start to get judged, you start to get separated, isolated, and even though not being a people pleaser means that we're going to be cruel and mean. No, the opposite of being the good girl is authenticity. It means I'm taking off the masks and I'm taking off these molds, getting out of the tiny box that they want me to fit in, and I'm being all me, whatever that means. And that's going to look different for everyone. Divine self-expression means you're fully embracing who you are. That doesn't mean you have to be like me. That doesn't mean you have to copy some other leader. No, it just means I go into my truth, and I embrace it, and I show up in the world as that truth. And that is when you become a threat to society.
What
Because
is it? What is navigating that with the more balanced goddess? Right. So it's almost like it's a new combat. So if you don't want to whip out the warrior,
Mhm.
what does that look like with the goddess?
To me, that's self-alignment, right? That means I'm now in alignment with my higher self, with my truth, with my full expression, whatever you want to call it. The difference is that when you're in that state, you're not bothered by what's happening in the outside. So it's such an inner peace, an inner wholeness and groundedness, if you will, where you walk through the world, even though they're throwing rocks at you and they want to burn you, but you still walk in your grounding space, knowing this is me and this will always be me. And you let them. It's like you don't get engaged anymore in fighting. Why? You don't need to. You're not hurting anybody by being yourself. So you let go of that bond or that attachment to, oh, but I'm hurting them. You let go of that. No, you realize everybody is responsible for their own feelings. If my authenticity is causing in them distress, it's for them to work on it. It's not my role to save them. So, and it's actually, you're actually sort of in a way empowering them to look at, why do you have such judgment towards this? Why don't you look inside? Is there a part of you that maybe recognizes yourself into that courageous girl that went out there, and maybe you start to realize, maybe I'm repressing that part of me, and there is a little bit of me that I want to explore and bring out. I always say explore the resistance, right? And it comes in your body, it comes as a sensation, it comes as a feeling, but there is information. So when you instantaneously judge a person for anything, regardless of women and men, when you feel judgment towards something, question it. Why? Because there is something there that's trying to tell you, maybe there is healing required for you in that area to be able to embrace that difference, because everything exists inside of you, right? Like the good, everything is inside of us. So that person is just being a mirror to you to show you what needs to be healed inside.
A lot of people don't take it that way. Men go through it's something similar where, right, our job is often to become more powerful in the world, make our own way, charge through the wilderness with our, weapons. Um, but that usually will mean leaving one tribe behind as you adopt another, because the rest of this group that you are originally with, they don't want to or are incapable of going along with you. And those young men will try to pull the person that's leaving them back into the group. The group is better. The group is safer. The group is where you belong. And when you go and try to forge your own path, then they will treat that person with anger and derision as they go form a new way for themselves. And then that person then has to go find a new tribe that is where they want to be at.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we're like the people that we surround ourselves with.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but that group gets angry, and I think it's because of that reflection.
Mhm.
Somehow me wanting to make a difference in my life and make it better is that person somehow feels it's a commentary on their life.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's their own insecurities projected onto you. It's that simple. And when you realize that, then I also look at them with compassion, which I get judged all the time. I mean, I guess you've seen my Instagram, and I first see it with compassion, and because I know maybe they don't see, oh, there is something that there's something that's trying to, there's information, right? They don't see it that way. And I've been there, so I understand. But at the same time, I continue to be true to myself. And I continue to be true to whatever it is that I'm here to do, and the way I want to present myself to the world. If I want to be an inspiration, if I want to continue modeling at 42, heck yeah, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to ask permission anymore. Because, and that, in that path, you'll find your people. There is people that will see that and be like, "Woo, go girl!" And then you'll realize, oh well, I was not alone. I mean, it felt for a moment because I don't belong to that group anymore. But there, you'll find your, like you call it, your tribe, right?
Absolutely. There shouldn't be, I don't know how to say this. I was going to say there shouldn't be age limits on the things that we want to do, but
Right.
seeing a 55-year-old man go hit the club seems a little crazy to me. But being a model later in life, middle age, like, I mean, you have people that model for the AARP ads, you know, and if you still got it, Kim Kardashian is a fantastic example. I think she's pushing 50.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and she's out there living her best life. And if men can keep going,
Yeah.
you know, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you mentioned your IG, and you've built 139,000
Yeah.
person following, which is incredible and impressive. It feels very authentic to me. It doesn't seem like you're trying to push trends or just get the likes. What is it like taking this authentic version of yourself that you have figured out and translating that into the wild west of social media?
Yeah. And one question: do you hear the noise outside or no?
The
Is it,
dogs?
because there's people in my jar? I'm like, really, right now?
It's okay. Post COVID life, right? We know.
Like, come on. Okay. So yeah. It's been a journey, I'll be honest. Of course, at the beginning, I mean, I have like 2,000 posts or something. I've been posting for a while, but it's been a journey because I still doubted myself at the beginning. At some part of me will be like, oh, what are people going to think? And I'm going to be judged for. And so, yes, it's been a journey, and now I'm way more confident and way more grounded in myself to be like, this is me. And I'm hoping that by projecting that and showing people that it is okay to be all you are, like truly who you are, um, and then you're going to inspire, even if it means just planting a seed of self-love or inspiration on someone that maybe wants to get out of the mold and feel more like themselves, even if it's just a tiny seed. Then I did my job. To me, it's about that. It's about empowering other people to realize your full expression and your inherent value has a space and a voice, and there is no need to dim down your light. There is no need to edit or to like nothing. Like, you can be you, and that is fine. That is what I'm trying actually to do with my with my social media. But of course, I've gotten trolls and bad comments and things like that maybe at the beginning will impact me a little bit. But now, no, I'm more towards, hey, if you resonated with this boldness of putting yourself out there, if you resonate with this, it's because there is a part of you that's telling you you can do it. So that is my overall message, I would say.
I think the people that troll and leave those nasty comments online, it says so much. Actually, I've gotten to a place of empathy for them because it says so much about where they're at in life, that that's how they show up, that they want to attack and demean and spew anger from the safety of a keyboard. It's sad. It's truly sad. Do you still take the time to read all of those comments?
I do, and I try, not all the time, but I try to reply. um I'm gladly, Instagram has come up with ways to um just hide comments that are hateful or things like that, or but I don't get as many, honestly, which is a blessing. Uh, as many comments, that are negative. I always say, look, if what I am projecting out to the world, if everything that I put out there does not align with what you believe at this moment, you don't have to follow me. So I'm truly using Instagram as a tool for empowerment and inspiration. So you have a right to see it or not to see it, right? So, and like I said, thankfully, if there's filters that I don't, I mean, I'm guessing that's what it's doing, but I don't see as many negative comments anymore, which is great. Mhm.
The negative comments, what's the split between men and women? What percentage would you say?
Oh, more women.
More women?
Yeah, that's what I was saying before. It's like, you will be judged when you get out of the crowd or whatever is it that society is expecting you to be. Right? If you get out of that pattern or that mold, they don't like it. Like, it's like, who do you think you are to be so brave and put yourself like that out there? Um, and that's what I want. I want women to be bold and to embrace who they are. And it's going to be different for everybody. Like, their self-expression is not the same as mine.
Yeah.
They don't have to wear bow in their heads. They don't have to wear nails. Like, this is me enjoying the fanciness of however I want to show,
Yeah.
however I want to show up. For another girl, her full expression may mean, you know, bald head and tattoos. It doesn't matter. We're not here to be the same. Jesus didn't come here to avoid diversity or whatever. No, he actually said we're here to love our brothers and sisters the same. And this is, I think we have lost that and think, especially this, you know, organized groups and religions and things like that, like the cultural conditioning, that if you don't look a certain way, if you don't act a certain way with a certain, rules, if you don't follow those rules, if you get out of that, then you're out. You don't belong. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
once you get out of that and you say, no, I'm gonna be my full expression, whatever that means, this group may not like it because now you're threatening to them.
Do you still feel alone, or have you found a group of people that support you?
I do. I mean, I did find that group, and I think that is true friendship. That is true connection. That I feel like there is such, I mean, I love it. It's my tribe. And I feel there is so many of like us, like the bold woman who puts herself out there everywhere. We're everywhere. It's just that it might be just a little bit scary to put ourselves out there like in social media.
Hmm.
But we are everywhere. And yes, I don't feel alone. And it's different. Like I mentioned before, once you're grounded in that essence, you're no longer looking for something external to validate you or to make you feel companion. No, you're so grounded in your presence and your expression that regardless of what's happening outside, regardless of, it's like the boat in the water, right? The water doesn't get in. You're like, it's okay. I'm not easily shaken anymore.
That's why it's so important to surround ourselves with the people that have the life that we want,
Yeah.
because you get all of that reinforcement. I like One of the things I like about talking to young people. We My company participates with the University of Chicago,
Yeah.
and it's interning high achieving high schoolers from around the world. And a lot of them come in with so much, like, of course things are going to work out. Of course, this is the way life is supposed to be. I'm going to achieve everything that I want. And I love that about them. And if you could take every person and put them with that group of 10 of those to go forward in life, we would all be much better off. So you blend, like, this balance between, would you say, like, neuroscience and spirituality, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do when somebody prefers one or the other in your business?
Then I weigh in a little bit more on the area that they like to start. Uh, just because if you're not I call it woo woo. It's not woo woo, but like if I come with all my spirituality to a person that's very practical, they're not gonna understand what I'm saying. They're being blocked from the very beginning and be like, oh, okay, I'm out of here. So I say I blend the two because they are related. They're interrelated. You cannot separate them. And there is always something happening in your brain, even though, let's say, even though I talk about meditation. Let's go there. And I explain a practice that is, you're going to visualize yourself in the future. And I do like an embodiment practice and something like that. I would still explain what's happening physiologically, what's happening in your nervous system, what's happening in your brain. Like, how are you pruning all neural pathways and creating new ones? So all this, like, more neuroscience-y, I will bring it to the conversation so that now they are like, oh, I get it. If the person is very practical, right? So I will still have them try the other side that maybe they're not into. Like, let's say they're very protocol, right? And just give me what to do and the steps, and that's it. And so they're trying to do the transformation very mindset based. But I always say, look, yeah, that's great. That's great. Your brain is powerful and it can help you achieve many things. But if you want true transformation, bring the information down to your body. And then now we're talking. So I'll explain. When you engage your whole nervous system, when everything comes online, that reality that you want, it starts to get real, because now you're engaging your body, you're telling it is safe to have that reality. Look, taste it. Look at this. Look at this visualization. Now you're living it in a way. So your body says, okay, we can go there, but also your limbic brain, your primal brain, and at the same time, your brain starts to do the math. Okay, how do we get there? Oh, we can do this, we can do that, and starts to give you like the steps. So I feel like you need to marry the two. Like you cannot just do mindset stuff, but you can also bring somatic practices into it to bring your whole self into it.
Yeah, that's the theory and practice, right? You
Yes,
need to be
exactly.
able to, yeah. So I have never done this before. How do you feel about doing a quick lightning round?
Lightning round.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you quick questions. You
Oh,
answer the first thing that pops in your head. We'll move
right.
on to the next.
That sounds good. Sounds like a game.
All right. One belief that you had at 25 that you've completely outgrown.
At 25, men are not trustable.
What's your definition of success now?
Being able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and whoever I want it.
I like that. A practice that's changed your life.
Meditation.
Just Ray Dalio is the owner of the largest hedge fund in the world, and he said that is the number one thing that has transformed his life.
Meditation. Yeah,
Hmm.
it's amazing. It's even like, and just a little parenthesis, but it's so simple. And we just overcomplicate things. We think that we need to have our mind like really out of thoughts and like be this pretzel yogi. No, it just go back to basic. Is how do you train your mind that you're the master, right? Like how do you bring that monkey mind that's always thinking and telling you things and going yada 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 yada? How do you bring that chatter and quiet for a few minutes? It doesn't have to be an hour. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 5 minutes every day for a little bit. And in that silence, you learn to be grounded and just, even if you have to like use a tool, when you use the chat GPT, even if you have to like use a tool like a mantra or repeat a word or a phrase or something that helps you bring the focus to the thing you're telling your mind focus on. It's a training to train the monkey mind, right? You're just learning how to come back to that silence instead of being always in the chaos of the mind. And that, with time, in that space, you start to truly meet yourself, that higher self that I'm talking about, that essence, that compassionate witness that's inside of you, that is none of the parts that are being conflicting or opposing and triggering. It's just that witness that's in the center, is grounded, is in harmony, is whole. So it's a beautiful practice. I mean, if there's something I recommend starting, is meditation.
Yeah, you can't walk through. We talked about resisting feeling or resisting those moments or going deep and numbing, but we also get numbed with the phone and social media and the monkey mind chattering away. And it's that transition can be scary of just, but you got to be able to feel and be quiet.
Yeah.
All right. Quote or phrase you live by.
What, sorry?
A quote or phrase you live by.
Quote or phrase I live by. I mean, I have so many
First one.
mantras. this is gonna be interesting, but I have a word. It's not even a word. I have a post-it on my monitor that says ish.
Ish.
And I explain what that means. It was I have it there as a reminder that I don't need to be perfect at everything I do, because a pattern that I brought into everything I do is that I was trying to achieve perfection at all my different roles, at everything I do. And it was, in a way, stopping me in many things I wanted to do because it was not perfect. So when I learned the word ish, because I don't think there's a word in Spanish. So when I learned the word ish, I was like, that is so, this is perfectly for what I need, because it tells me it's good enough. It just ish it. It's okay. It doesn't have to be the the ultimate perfection for you to launch it, for you to do it, for you to go there. No, if it's ish, it's good enough.
100% agree. There's a quote, the enemy of good is perfect, or perfect is the enemy of good. And that's what ish reminds me of that. I'm gonna have to just go to ish. I like that. All right, ready for the last one?
Yep.
If your kids remember one thing about you, or how you showed up in the world. So if your kids remember one thing about how you showed up in the world, what do you hope it is?
Authentic.
You want it to be known as authentic. And
I
how do you define
want
that?
I want them to learn to be authentic. I don't want them to wear masks or try to fit into tiny boxes that society is handing them. And I know it's hard, especially, they go to the system, they have to go to school, they have to follow lines, they have to da, da, da. And I understand you need that a little bit to be functional. You need to become a person so that you can function in society. However, I want them to pursue whatever it is that they want. And I want them to be that full expression of themselves out in the world, whatever that means. And that means career wise, that means gender wise, that means, preferences, anything. And I'll tell you something. Nobody knows this, but my little one, when he was very little, and this is gonna be premiere for the whole world. My little one, he was 6 years old, and he said to me, "Mom, I think I'm gay." He was 6 years old. And of course, all my alarms go up, because I wasn't expecting it, because how do you handle this? Like, you just don't know. It's so weird. And it was such a lesson for me to say, it's his path, it's his life. If that's him, thank God he has the ability to recognize from that age that he is not identifying fully with the gender he was given at birth. And it's a whole story. Like, we'll be talking for hours, and it was not a thing. Like, I can see it in him, like how he's very different. This is the one that did the tantrum. He's very, very different from other kids. And the fact that he stands up for who he is, I admire that. As such, he's only 12 now, but he's so little, and you'll see him wear the stuff that he wants, the colors that he wants. And at some point, I remember me thinking, how do I speak to him? Because I want to protect him, right? How do I speak to him about, who can he share this with? Like, how to recognize, when he's in a situation that is unsafe, like all these things. I even thought of, how do I change his mind? Like, it was such I could see my own fears running through my head, trying to portray it onto him. But I stopped myself, and I thought, well, if he is telling me, like, this is me and this is who I want to be, and how do I allow him to go through that path, respecting who he wants to be in the world, and of course, while teaching him values and all that, but I don't want to be the one that puts something on his head and says, "No, you cannot be that." because you're gonna be this and this and that, or because you're gonna be judged, or because of all that's, it's gonna be hard. No, and so to me, again, my masters, my kids, it was such a lesson of saying, look, if there is something I can give my kids, it's not projecting my own fears onto them and telling them what they need to be or how they need to act, or what, putting my own agenda on their lives. It's how do I allow them, or how do I enable them to be truly authentic, bringing their full expression into the world, regardless of who likes it or not.